I didn't expect the story behind. My CEO saw me at the supermarket and whispered, "Be my boyfriend or lose your job." To start with a dented coffee machine. Not the supermarket. Not the whispered threat. Just a faulty machine humming on my workbench at the repair shop, dripping warm water onto my thumb while I tried to pretend I wasn't tired enough to fall asleep standing. I remember wiping my hand on my shirt when the bell above the door gave that soft metal chime. The kind that sounds too polite for the place, like whoever designed it thought this shop would be fancier than it is. And then she walked in. I didn't know her title back then, or her reputation, or the way people said her name with a mix of respect and fear. I just saw a woman in her mid-40s, wearing a charcoal coat that looked expensive but somehow still comfortable, like she didn't dress to impress anyone but herself. She didn't look around the shop the way most new customers did. Her eyes went straight to me, calm, direct, like she'd already decided something before stepping inside. "Is this where I can get this fixed?" she asked, lifting a small portable scanner. "The corporate kind." I nodded a little too quickly. Yeah, that's me. Smooth. Very smooth." She seemed amused, but didn't laugh. She just set the device on the counter and watched my hands as I picked it up, as if I was performing something worth studying. The scanner beeped weakly. A dying battery, loose internal connection, maybe both. I tried focusing on the screws, the wiring, literally anything except the faint perfume she carried, something subtle, warm, not sweet, like the scent of a hotel lobby late at night. She moved closer. Not enough to invade my space, but enough that I felt her presence like a shift in temperature. "You're new," she said. "New enough," I replied. 3 weeks. "What did you do before this?" "College. Left early." Why did I say that? I never say that. She nodded slowly, like she understood more from that single sentence than anyone else ever bothered to. And then she asked, "Do you like it here?" The question wasn't about the shop. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. "It's quiet," I said. I guess I needed quiet for a while. A tiny smile pulled at her mouth, not the friendly kind, the knowing kind. She didn't fill the silence that followed. She just stayed there, hands tucked into her coat pockets, eyes drifting from the machine to my face and back again, like she was waiting for something I wasn't aware I owed her. I fixed the scanner quickly, too quickly, and placed it back in her hands. "Should work now. But, don't drop it again." Her eyebrows lifted. I didn't drop it. Oh, I had no follow-up for that. She held the scanner a moment longer, almost like she was testing its weight, then said, "Thank you. What's your name?" "Ryan." She repeated it, softly, like she was trying out the shape of it. "Ryan." And I don't know why, but the sound of my name in her voice did something small and stupid in my chest. She turned to leave, but paused at the door, fingers resting on the glass. "If it breaks again, I'll bring it to you." Then she walked out. Just like that. No dramatic moment. No flirtation, nothing obvious. But I kept replaying that pause at the door, the slight turn of her head, the way she said my name like it already meant something. I should have forgotten it. But I didn't. I still don't. I didn't think she'd actually come back. People say things like that all the time. "I'll bring it to you. I'll come again. Next time, maybe." Most of them never do. But 2 days later, right as I was sweeping metal shavings into a pan, the bell over the door chimed again. Softer this time, like it already knew who it was carrying in. She stepped inside with the same coat, the same calm way of moving, but her shoulders looked tighter, like she was carrying something heavier than the slim folder in her hand. "It stopped working again," she said, placing the scanner on the counter. It hadn't. I could tell just from the faint blink of the power light. But she didn't meet my eyes when she said it, and somehow that told me everything. She wasn't here for the scanner. "Let me check," I said quietly, as if pretending along with her made it easier. She stood a little behind me, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I felt her breaths, slow and steady, like she was trying to control them. Her hands were bare this time, pale at the knuckles, faint lines along her fingers, the kind of hands that did more work than people assumed. She tapped them softly against the edge of the counter, not in impatience, more like she needed something solid to anchor herself. "You look tired," I said before thinking. She froze for half a second, so small anyone else would have missed it. But I noticed. I had a long morning, she replied, brushing hair behind her ear. Only the hair didn't need brushing. It was already perfect. I tightened a screw on the scanner that didn't need tightening. If you want, you can sit. She hesitated. Just a breath. Then she sat on the chair near my workstation, crossing her legs in a neat, composed motion that didn't match the tension around her eyes. For a minute she pretended to check her emails, scrolling without really reading anything. Every now and then she glanced at me. Quick, almost guilty, but not enough to call it that. What do you study? She asked suddenly. I used to do computer engineering. Why used to? I shrugged. Didn't fit. She looked at me with this softness. Not pity, not surprise, just understanding, like she knew the weight of leaving things behind. Maybe she did. She asked nothing else after that. And the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It sat between us like something fragile neither of us wanted to disturb. When I finally handed the scanner back, she took it carefully, her fingers brushing mine. Accidental, light, but enough to make my breath stutter for a beat. She pretended not to notice. Thank you, she said, standing. She smoothed her coat sleeve, though it wasn't wrinkled. You're very attentive. Attentive. She could have said skilled, fast, helpful. But she chose that. She walked toward the door, paused the same way she had the first time, hand on the glass, shoulders rising as if she was about to say something else. But she didn't. She just whispered, barely audible, maybe I shouldn't come here so often. And then she left, leaving me with the scanner still warm from her hands, and a feeling I didn't have a name for yet. The third time wasn't planned. It was late, later than any customer ever walked into the shop. Rain had started without warning, tapping against the windows in uneven rhythms. I was closing up, half the lights already off, when I heard someone trying to open the front door. I thought it was a mistake. But then her silhouette appeared through the glass, blurred by the rain, still unmistakable. She stepped inside before I could even greet her, shaking droplets from her coat sleeve, breathing a little heavier than usual. Not out of exhaustion, more like she'd been holding her breath the entire walk here. I'm sorry, she said softly, closing the umbrella. I shouldn't have come this late. It's fine. I was still here. She gave me a look, the kind people give when fine isn't the point. The scanner wasn't with her this time. She didn't even pretend. I just needed a place to sit for a moment, she said, lowering her eyes. My driver's delayed, and I didn't want to wait outside. I nodded, moving aside so she could take the same chair she did last time. She sank into it more slowly than before, like the day had weighed on every bone in her body. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers trembling just enough for me to notice. Are you okay? I asked. She exhaled through her nose. A quiet, tired release. Work issues. People who think I don't hear what they say behind closed doors. She let out a humorless, almost invisible laugh. Sometimes I wish I could just disappear for an hour. Her voice cracked at the end. Not fully, just a thin fracture, as if she was fighting it. I didn't know what to say, so I sat across from her, letting the rain fill the silence. She watched me instead of the window, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. You don't ask for anything, she murmured. Everyone else wants something from me. I don't, I said quietly. I know. Her gaze lingered on me a little too long. That's what scares me. Before I could ask what she meant, her phone buzzed. The name lit up bright on her screen. Daniel, whoever he was. She didn't answer. She just stared at it until it dimmed. Your partner? I asked, instantly regretting it. She didn't react for a full second. Then, ex-husband. The words seemed pulled out of her, like she hated giving them oxygen. She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly, rainlight flickering across her face. He wants to talk. Her fingers made air quotes that didn't match her expression. I'm not ready. The vulnerability was so raw I felt like I shouldn't be in the room. I wanted to reach out, just rest a hand near hers, not touching, just close. But I didn't move. Restraint felt safer. You can stay here until he stops calling, I said softly. She opened her eyes, studying me. Something unspoken hovered between us. Not romance, not yet, but something alive and unsteady. The rain got louder. She stood, slowly, almost as if testing the space between us. She stepped closer, one step, then another, stopping just beside me. Her coat brushed my arm, barely, but enough to burn. "Ryan," she said, voice low, "tell me something honest." My throat tightened. My mind offered 100 things I shouldn't say. I parted my lips, and then her phone buzzed again, louder this time, vibrating against the chair. She flinched. The moment snapped. She stepped back. I stayed still. The thing I almost said hung in the air, unfinished, waiting. The rain had eased by the time I locked the shop door, but she didn't leave right away. She stood under the small awning, her umbrella unopened, coat pulled tight at the collar as if the air had turned colder in the last few minutes. I stepped beside her, careful not to stand too close. The street was quiet enough that our breaths fogged the same space. "You didn't finish what you were going to say," she murmured. I swallowed. "Neither did you." She didn't deny it. She just nodded once, eyes fixed on the wet pavement reflecting the yellow street lamps. Her posture wasn't perfect now, her shoulders tilted inward, like she was trying to fold herself into something smaller. "Ryan," she said, softer than rain. Whatever we're doing, it isn't normal." I exhaled a laugh that didn't sound like one. "I know. What are we trying to be?" Her voice wasn't sharp, it was tired, unsure. "Strangers? Friends? Something else?" She shook her head faintly. "I don't even know why I keep coming here." I did, but I didn't dare say it. She looked at me then, really looked. Not the composed look she wore like armor. This one was bare, almost scared. Her eyes held questions she didn't want to voice, and I felt them all settling in my chest. "I don't want to make your life complicated," she whispered. "You're not." The words came too fast. She gave a breathy, almost broken smile. "I'm older than you. I shouldn't linger around someone who barely knows what he wants yet. That's not fair. To you? Or to me?" Her gaze flickered, as if she was afraid of where the answer might lead. We stood in silence, not the comfortable kind we'd had before. This one felt like a thin wire pulled between us, trembling with every unspoken thought. Her phone buzzed again in her coat pocket. She didn't check it this time. She just pressed her hands deeper into her pockets, grounding herself. "I used to be good at keeping distance," she said quietly, "at staying in control. And now I'm not sure what happens when I'm around you." The words hit harder than any confession. Not romantic, not intentional, just true in a way that made something slip inside me. "You don't have to stay away," I said, even though part of me wasn't sure if that was selfish. "Yes," she breathed, "I do." But she didn't move. She stayed there, rain dripping from the awning, her eyes searching mine like she was trying to figure out how everything had shifted without either of us touching. "I'm not supposed to feel anything," she whispered, the sentence thinning as she reached the end. I stepped back slightly, giving her room she didn't take. "You haven't done anything wrong," I said. "Not yet." Her gaze softened painfully, but I don't trust myself not to. A passing car splashed through a puddle, breaking the stillness for 1 second, and in that tiny noise, something inside her cracked. She looked at me with a kind of devastation that didn't belong to romance, but to truth. "Tell me," she said, voice barely a word. "Why does it feel harder to walk away every time I see you?" I didn't see her the next day, or the day after. The shop felt different without her, too still, too clean, like someone had turned the world's volume down. I kept telling myself I wasn't waiting for her, but every time the bell over the door stayed silent, something tightened in my chest. On the third morning, when I unlocked the shop, I found something wedged beneath the door. A small, folded envelope. No name. No handwriting on the outside. Just left there quietly, like whoever delivered it didn't want to be seen or thanked. Inside was a single photograph. Her. Younger. Maybe 10, 15 years earlier. Standing beside a man with a grin that took up half the frame. His arm wrapped around her shoulders like he belonged there. And she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen. Big. Unburdened. Alive in a way the woman who stood under the awning in the rain could barely imitate anymore. Behind them, a sign read, "Grand Opening, 2009. A bookstore. Small, warm-looking. The kind of place people build with love, not money." I stared at the photo until the morning light dimmed the edges. On the back, a message written in the careful, steady handwriting I'd come to recognize from the labels on her documents. Don't become someone else's replacement. My throat tightened. I didn't know what she meant at first, then I did, all at once, like a weight dropping straight through me. I wasn't imagining the way she looked at me, but I wasn't seeing the full picture either. I set the photo down just as the bell chimed. She stepped inside slowly, almost cautiously, like she wasn't sure she had permission. Her coat was lighter today, hair pulled back, but her eyes looked like she hadn't slept. You got it, she said softly, noticing the envelope on the counter. You left it. She nodded, then hesitated. I shouldn't have, but I didn't know how else to say it. I slid the photograph toward her. She didn't pick it up. She just kept staring at it, hands steady but jaw tight. Who was he? I asked quietly. She didn't answer right away. She touched the edge of the counter with her fingertips, like she needed a surface to keep herself grounded. My husband, she said finally, before everything fell apart. I waited. He died, she continued, voice barely above a breath. Years before the divorce papers ever existed. Not physically, just the person he was. The bookstore was his dream, not mine. She swallowed. I tried to keep it alive. I tried to keep him alive through it. And when I finally let it go, it felt like betraying my own memory of him. Her eyes flicked to mine for a second, terrified of judgment, or maybe of understanding. I'm not replacing anyone, I said softly. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. A hum of electricity went through me, not excitement, not attraction. Something deeper, heavier, like the room had shifted around us. She lowered her gaze, voice trembling just enough to feel like a confession. When I look at you, I remember what it felt like to be seen. And I don't know if I'm allowed to feel that again. She stepped back as if she'd said too much. I don't trust myself with second chances. She didn't leave right away after the confession. She looked like she wanted to, like her body was leaning toward the door while something else held her in place. But her feet stayed planted on the worn floorboards. I didn't move either. The distance between us felt different now. Not charged, not dangerous, just honest. Like the air had finally stopped pretending. She glanced at the photograph again, her fingers brushing its edge but not turning it over. I shouldn't have given you that, she murmured. It wasn't fair. It wasn't unfair, I said quietly. She shook her head. You're young. You shouldn't have to carry pieces of someone else's past. I'm not carrying anything. I paused, searching for words that didn't sound rehearsed or too heavy. You let me see you. That's all. She let out a slow exhale, the kind that's half relief, half surrender. She stepped closer, not a deliberate step, more like her weight shifted without asking permission. The soft scuff of her heel on the floor felt louder than the rain outside. I keep thinking I should walk away, she said, voice low. Every time I'm near you, that thought gets quieter. I swallowed. Maybe it's supposed to. She looked up at me then, really looked, and something in her expression softened. The sharp lines of responsibility, the guarded CEO composure, all of it loosened around the edges. What remained was a tired, careful woman who had spent too long pretending she didn't feel anything at all. You make things uncomplicated, she whispered. I don't think that's true, I said, a half laugh leaving me before I could stop it. Her lips twitched. No, it isn't. We stood in that stillness, the photograph between us, the unspoken truth settling quietly like dust on a windowsill. Not a confession, not a decision, just an understanding that whatever this was, we had reached the point where pretending it didn't exist felt impossible. She took another step, slow, hesitant, but deliberate this time. Close enough that I could see the faint smudge of mascara under her eye, the tiny scar near her jaw, the exhaustion hiding beneath her restraint. Ryan, she said softly, I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't either. And I can't promise it won't get messy. It probably will. Her eyes held mine in a long, suspended moment. Something fragile passed between us. Not romance, not lust, not anything explosive. Just a quiet permission neither of us had spoken aloud. She reached out first, not to touch my face or my chest or any of the dramatic places stories usually choose. Her hand simply rested on my forearm, a gentle, uncertain press of her fingers against my skin. Light, barely there, but enough to make the world narrow to that single point of connection. I didn't move. I didn't need to. She closed her eyes for 1 second, breathing in like she'd been holding everything together for years and finally allowed herself to exhale. When she opened them again, the tension between us wasn't sharp anymore. It was settled. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "Then stay," I whispered. Her thumb brushed my arm, the smallest, softest motion, but it felt like the moment everything quietly shifted into place. No declarations, no promises, just two people standing close enough to stop pretending they weren't choosing each other. And for the first time, silence felt like an answer. I look back on everything now with a kind of quiet smile, one that comes only after you've lived through something that truly changed you. Not the loud, dramatic kind of change people post about online, but the slow, steady shift that settles into your bones and makes you see life differently. That's what she brought into my world. And that's what stayed long after the chaos, the confusion, the fear, and the questions faded. The strange thing is, I didn't notice the change while it was happening. I didn't realize how her presence softened me, or how her laughter fixed parts of me I didn't know were broken. Back then, I thought love was supposed to feel like a storm, loud, unpredictable, impossible to hold. But what grew between us wasn't a storm. It was a sunrise. Quiet, certain, impossible to ignore. And now, standing here in the present, I understand the truth. The best kind of love doesn't knock you off your feet. It teaches you how to stand. She changed too. I didn't see it at first, but over time I realized she stopped hiding behind her own doubts. She stopped apologizing for wanting to be understood. Somewhere along the way, she started letting herself be seen. Not the version of her that the world expected, but the version that breathed easier when she was close to me. The one who didn't flinch when she talked about her fears. The one who didn't pretend to be stronger than she was. The one who trusted someone enough to be vulnerable. And that trust became the quiet foundation of everything that followed. Sometimes love doesn't come into your life to give you butterflies or fireworks. Sometimes it comes to give you clarity, to show you the difference between being wanted and being chosen, between being comfortable and being understood, between holding on out of fear and staying because it finally feels safe. Looking back, I realized we weren't perfect, not even close. But perfection was never the point. Growth was, and we grew. In the moments we shared, in the mistakes we made, in the silence we learned to understand, we found a kind of connection that doesn't fade with time. It matures. It deepens. It becomes part of who you are. And now, even after everything we went through, the highs, the lows, the memories we still carry gently, there's a peace between us that feels earned. A peace that reminds me that love doesn't always end in happy ever after. Sometimes it ends in something quieter, but just as meaningful: understanding, gratitude, closure, and the knowledge that for a moment in time, two people changed each other for the better. That's the afterglow I'm left with. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?